Poor old Matt Porter's here. Poor old Matt is here.
Sick note.
Poor old Matt. Matt runs Matt Porter Web Design Innovation Martlesham on at Astral Park. That is when he's not at the A&E department in Ipswich Hospital or some other department having something checked.
I've got a reserved parking space.
You're going through the mill at the moment, aren't you, dear boy?
I have a little bit, yeah. I'm getting
it's
there.
It's funny when we reach that certain age, isn't it? You start talking about ailments. Anyway, also with us, John Nice, owner of Nice PR. John, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Everything
for the
in working order today?
Absolutely.
Excellent. You did the PR for Eastern Otley College at the Suffolk show.
We did.
Thank you to the team who made our Hedgehog Garden, which was an absolute massive attraction at the Suffolk show.
It was our pleasure. It was
really
good.
Our
pleasure.
Really good. And Bowlesy's here as well. Kara and Felixstowe Gog.
And prickly Old Git this week, we understand, Mark.
Yes. You've got Norman, your hedgehog.
Norman, he's doing very well. I see him very often. He tends to come about midnight, just as I'm sort of going to bed. He comes and scuttles around the garden and has his food and drink. Lovely.
It's interesting. I didn't know that they have a kind of internal clock, which we heard from Paula earlier on. They will come at a certain time.
Well, that's
it's
definitely
normal like that, then?
Yeah, definitely. Normally between about 15:15 and midnight. If I'm going to see him, that's the time. Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. Excellent. Well, time for some grumps. That's the niceties out of the way. Where should we start? Well, let's start with... this is an interesting one. Let's start with Matt and shared driveways.
Yes, interesting that when I moved to Suffolk some years ago, 14 years ago, where I used to live, where the houses were built, there was generally two drives between houses, so you could park two cars on the drive comfortably between a house. But having moved to Suffolk, or particularly Ipswich, I noticed that generally there isn't. There's just enough room for one car between semi-detached houses, so you end up with a lot of shared drives. And my grump is that you spend a lot of money between neighbours having a brand new block paved drive laid, which looks absolutely beautiful. Then those lovely neighbours leave because they might have a larger family and decide to upsize or whatever, and new neighbours turn up. And they don't pay as much attention to that driveway as you would hope. So you end up with a very, very nice drive, your side, but the other side is markedly different with overgrown weeds growing between the bricks. And it's kind of annoying because I know that if those weeds were to grow much more, they're probably going to start damaging that driveway, and they're probably then going to say, well, we need to have a new drive, which we don't need to have.
See, the thing is that it is all about neighbours when you live in a town, isn't it? And I can remember when I went one day and I bought we had a shared lawn at the front, okay? There was no barrier, it was just a shared lawn where I lived before. And I went to a well-known DIY store and I bought some lawn feed. And I thought, well, I'll just put the lawn feed down on the lawn, give it a bit of a green look. And I ran out, genuinely ran out halfway. And I thought, well, it won't matter, it won't work, will it? Well, several days later, I've got this green, lush lawn.
They burst into life.
And theirs was all kind of sere and kind of brown. And I walked out one day and they stood sort of looking and I went, well, I was going to do it all, but I just ran out and I didn't. And I felt I was so apologetic. Felt really bad about it for ages.
We had that with our... we've got a little grass verge at the front of our house, and this is with another neighbour. And they... because the verge was starting to overgrow a little bit, the neighbour went out with his new lawnmower and started cutting it. I'm thinking,
lovely.
Oh, nice
That's
one.
Nice, yeah.
And he stopped...
No!
Where the border with our house was.
Oh, no.
And I just thought, literally, this grass verge was 10 feet by 4 feet or something, nothing. It would have taken nothing to just carry on and finish the job. And in fact, while he was out there, I took my lawnmower out and did the rest, but I did all the edges and everything and made it look really pristine. So I just find sometimes that people, you share these kind of things, and you have to have this kind of... You have to think about other people a bit more, not...
you ever thought about moving into the country in a detached house?
Yes, it is a daily thing, I spend most of my time when I'm not in hospital looking at the property supplements,
Neil, what do you experience this with neighbours?
I'm very, very lucky. I've got some fantastic neighbours. We've got one issue with one immediately next door with their garden, but they're elderly people and they're having a trouble. I'm trying to get some charity people or something to try and help them.
Yep.
But funny enough, you talk about the drive. 2 years ago, we had a lovely brand new drive laid at home, and Chelsea set, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it had been taken nearly 2 weeks, and they'd just finished the job, and they said, Neil, you can park. A neighbour had let me park on their drive. That's how kind they are. And they said, you can park your car on there, Neil. And just that day, Linda became ill, and she was taken into hospital that evening. So I never got a chance to park my car. The first vehicle to park on my really lovely, expensive new drive was an emergency ambulance.
Oh, dear.
And it dropped oil all over me.
Oh, no.
But there we go. No, I'm very lucky with neighbours, but in the past I've had one or two, and it can be very, very upsetting, can't it? Neighbour
Are
issues.
you proud of your driveway, John?
Well, when I saw this one on the list, I thought I was going to meet Lord Matt Porter. You know, having issues about driveways is something unfortunately I can't relate to. I have to sort of slog it out with my neighbours for parking spaces on our street.
Oh, parking on the street, okay.
So yeah, I'm lucky to get a space. I sometimes have to go, quarter of a mile away maybe to get a space. So, but no, I can't really relate to this one, unfortunately.
Do you have sort of issues then trying to park? And do you find sort of, I want to park out the front of my house rage?
Well, it's not happened yet because I've only been there 6 weeks.
Okay,
and
get well.
will it? Something to look forward to. But fortunately, so far our neighbour's been grand, so hopefully no issues there.
Okay.
It's funny, isn't it, when you talk about parking outside the front of houses, how people become very attached to that bit of space, which is actually a public road.
Yes.
And I have experience of neighbours getting very irritable when people park there as well.
It's
and
like that bread where they got the bollards out. Do you remember that
Yes,
TV sitcom?
yeah. People do that. People will put
You find
guns
some
out.
people put do not park signs and things like that where they've not bothered to have their curb lowered, but they still think they've got the right of access. They've turned their little front garden into some sort of a driveway.
Yeah.
Haven't paid the council for
they won't
lowering
drop
the curb, yet
Yeah.
still expect people not to park there, which I would imagine, I've not experienced that personally, but I would imagine that would cause some rows.
Well, it wrecks the verge normally because normally there's a verge there still, and they drive across the verge and eventually rip the verge to bits, and then end up with a big hole in the ground that fills up with water. Which they then complain about.
It's kind of going from shared driveways to dodgy neighbours.
Well, I
this
think it's
chat.
yeah, it is a little bit, isn't it?
Well, just to save your embarrassments about any stories you may have about neighbours, that because it's difficult talking about neighbours on the radio because they might be listening.
Well, hopefully, they might do. If they are, they can do something about it, then, can't they? That's the idea.
More from the Grumpy Old Gits in a moment. Grumpy Old Gits are here, and it is John, Matt, and Neil. John, football.
Yes.
Bit of that around at the moment.
There is indeed. Yeah, I just wanted, it was a grump really. Obviously, England won yesterday, so it feels a bit out of place to be grumping about England. But
you will.
I will, yeah. But I mean, like, just walking to the pub, I had the afternoon off yesterday. It just felt like walking to a funeral, just to kind of, I don't know, it's that scared, like, anticipation that you go through. And it's not all bad. I went to Euro 2004, and it was an amazingly positive experience. And when Frank Lampard scored in injury time against Portugal, the whole kind of, like, 20 of us all did a group hug, and it was just an amazing feeling. But on the downside, and there's been a lot of it in this tournament, the kind of fans always seem to let you down, although I think sometimes the way the media depicts it is unfair, because I went to Euro 2004, there was thousands of England fans in this fountain before the game, or in this square before the game, and they were all getting on, just, joking with the Portuguese, and there was 11 or 12 like drunk people, shaved heads, tops off, beers, and of course all the TV cameras straight to them, and you've got thousands of England fans kind of like nodding disapprovingly in their direction. So the kind of fans sometimes let you down. And on a more lighter note, it's kind of, we always seem to go 1-0 up and hang on for dear life, and that's so against the kind of way that English football teams play. It's a lot more gung-ho, sort of not so light enough. I guess the sort of German songs they sing and the Irish songs I think are unnecessary. Penalty shootouts, I mean, being an England fan and penalty shootouts is just horrific, isn't it?
Don't.
And as an
guaranteed a pizza advert afterwards, though, aren't you?
That's true. But as an Ipswich fan, it's the kind of one time you get to support people like Rooney and Wilshere, and they always seem to let you down. Kind of, there's the hope that an expectation.
Yeah,
but then
Heskey was famous for that, wasn't he? When Heskey was rolled out as the saviour and actually did nothing.
No, he scored against Germany, didn't he? But maybe the hope. Maybe this is our year.
Well, it could be. I mean, yesterday afternoon we were pretty depressed in the office, I have to say. And then, of course, up pops Mr. Vardy, who should be playing from the start. Harry Kane shouldn't be taking corners. And then, of course, Sturridge in the last minute, which was fantastic. So, could be our year. There's no one team that really looks to be kind of on fire.
Iceland.
Italy look good.
Iceland.
Italy are playing today, aren't they? They've got their second game today.
Yeah, okay. Give you that one.
I'm not sure if I enjoyed yesterday's England match.
No.
I'm fortunate I can watch. I've got a lot of time at home, and I've watched part or all of every single match so far. Some of them I've just had it on in the background, just listening to see if there's any action. But I'm not sure I actually enjoyed the England match. It was so tense. I could feel in the second half, Linda and I were commenting on about our heartbeats.
It's mentally exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, the euphoria when they got the winning goal was fantastic. But I said to Linda, I can't wait to watch a neutral game later on and actually sit and watch it as a match and enjoy it.
I've got great memories of Euro 96, and that being the time where it was just watching England beat teams thoroughly. You know, I think specifically there was Holland. Holland 4-1, wasn't it? And just watching that was just amazing, because they were just so good then, and it was nice to watch. I mean, obviously it didn't end well in Euro 96, but
the feel-good factor it created,
again,
though.
but it was fantastic.
What a great tournament, though, it was, because there was no crowd violence anywhere from any nation or anything. It's we certainly do police it well and put on a good show, and I think there will probably be debates about whether the next World Cup goes ahead in Russia, given the recent problems, and I think England could very, very capably put it on. We've got the stadia now, and we could put on a really good World Cup, and it would probably be trouble-free.
And would know how to police it, which unfortunately the French didn't seem to know how to deal with England versus Russia, although the argument would be that they shouldn't have to deal with that kind of stuff, and it should be consigned to the history books. But sadly there is still, and it's so close, you know, there's a small minority of people, as you say, John, who are not football fans in any way, shape or form. They're just out there for a fight, aren't they?
I was always told by my dad, because we used to go to France on holiday all the time, and he always told me that if you see CRS, which I believe is the riot police, in that you walk in the other direction, because their way of dealing with things are
pretty basic.
Hit first, ask questions later, so you keep away from them. And I think maybe we're saying, "Oh, this is awful. These people are, baton charging."
You should abide by the rules and regulations of the country that you go in, and go and have a nice time and have fun.
There's some amazing footage of the Irish supporters outside a bar. Have you seen it? Where there's a chap living in a flat above, and he comes out onto the balcony, and they all start cheering him, and then he goes back in again, and they all start booing, and he comes out, and they all cheering him, and it's all really brilliantly light-hearted and absolutely
it's exactly what it should be.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely.
But Neil, you're not happy with the kit?
No, this is a bit of a bugbear with me. I'm British, but I'm first and foremost I'm a proud Englishman, and when it comes to sport, England are quite funny, really, because the England flag is red and white across the St George, and England traditionally always play in blue and white, and it just annoys me, whereas most football teams and sports teams around the world, not all, there are some exceptions such as Italy, but most countries play in the countries of their national flag. And I just don't understand England's fixation with blue, and even their kit, which is very smart this year, has got the light blue kind of shoulders and the red socks.
At least it's not grey like it was in Euro 96.
But no, it just annoys me now. Whereas the England rugby team play in a white kit with a nice red rose, very, very English. And Scotland play in their nice dark blue, and Wales play in the red, and all that. But we don't play in our traditional.
I think grey's quite appropriate for England.
Most times.
Bearing in mind our weather most of the time.
And the mood that they normally leave us in at the end of the competition.
Great colour.
I think we always reflect back to 66 as
Yeah,
well,
that
with
was in
them
red,
in
wasn't it?
red, because they were playing in the away strip, weren't they, then?
Yeah, because Germany had an almost identical strip.
And it was just, that red shirt, and it evokes...
iconic, isn't it?
It evokes all the success and everything that we kind of so badly want.
I'd like to see that. I really would like to see that. It's it's our national pride sometimes in all things like St George's Day and things like. We just don't celebrate it. We celebrate St Patrick's Day more than we do St George's Day. A lot of us will go and have a Guinness or something. And for such a famous old nation, we do lack a bit of national pride sometimes.
I really didn't get an answer to this the other morning. I floated it on the show the other morning. You may or may not know that I got a white camper van, and I want to know whether I should put England flags on the gutters. John, should I go down the gutter flag route? Because they'll only end up getting blown off probably. But should I go for it? I haven't seen many this year.
No, there's been a few about. Personally, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No. But I can see why people do. But no, I
You
just...
wouldn't do it?
Personally, I think it looks a bit tacky.
Okay, all right. You haven't seen my van.
Adds value to it.
I might do. Matt, should I or shouldn't I?
I have in the past done that. I think that the problem is there was a bit of trouble at the beginning of this competition, and it's deflated people's pride in the nation, that they're kind of embarrassed. We're embarrassed yet again to be pulled into this football hooliganism, horrible, rotten thing that used to be so awful, and it's rearing its ugly head. And I think that there's a bit of embarrassment there over people.
So maybe I should wait a bit, should I?
I think we need to see how we get on in this in the preliminaries and see what happens.
Should I, Neil?
Yeah, I mentioned to you on Facebook. Yeah, go for it. I'm going to. And last night, after the euphoria of yesterday's victory, I know I've got a couple of flags from the last World Cup stuck in one of my cupboards or pantry or whatever. And I was looking everywhere for them. I couldn't find them because I was going to put them on my car today because I felt proud suddenly that the violence has calmed down, the football is getting good, and I wanted to put them on. But so yes, I would say yes, Mark.
One of my friends, a friend of mine who was who's actually a customer as well, he's got a flagpole in his back garden, and he normally flies the Ipswich Town flag. But for this cup, I would pretty much guarantee he's got the flag of St George.
Okay,
up.
here's a quick one for you. John in Blunderston. Yesterday, the Welsh were singing in their normal, wonderful way, "Land of My Fathers," but the English were singing the national anthem. But surely that's the national anthem of Wales as well as it is England. It covers all of us.
I looked this up. I had exactly the same thought process, that there was a lot of God Save the Queen being sung very loudly in the crowds, and I actually went and checked, and there are rules. There are a set of rules that during sporting events, we, as England, take the national anthem as their song, but there are other national anthems that Wales, Scotland and Ireland, Northern Ireland will use instead. So actually, sorry, in that case, there is a legitimate use of, apparently, of the national anthem.
Well, interestingly, Northern Ireland actually have God Save the Queen.
Yeah, someone's brought that up. What happens if England play Northern Ireland?
Exactly.
I like the Welsh national anthem.
Do you think we'd have it twice?
Well, I don't know.
Or
I don't know what happens.
But
Australia as well, their national anthem is I mean, there are a number of countries around the world which God Save the Queen is. They call it now a different thing now. It's called the Royal. I think it's called the Royal Anthem or something.
Yeah.
But
a very interesting thing is that we in the football and various other sports, rugby, we compete as England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. But famously for the Olympic Games and certain other events, we get together as Team GB. Now, that is wrong because it should actually be called Team UK because Ireland is not part of Great Britain. Great Britain is the main land of England, Scotland and Wales, and Ireland only join us as part of the UK. It's the
Northern Ireland,
the
Great Britain and Northern
United
Ireland.
Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and apparently that has caused some problems with the Northern Irish sports
Tell you what,
people.
we'll get Lord Coe. Oh no, he's got enough trouble as it is. Right, it's just gone 11:30, so here we go. Let's do it, everybody.
Yeah, slightly more difficult. Really, you have to do a lot more work with me to get tickets out of me.
I'm slightly concerned about your content on the show tomorrow because you've reached the letter X.
Yeah, I know. It's difficult. Well, what you got? You got XTC, X-ray specs,
and
that's about it. It's going to be a long hour with just two groups. There must be other X's.
An hour of X.
Yeah. Yeah, we might have to extend it to song titles, but then what's that? Xanadu, the Legend of Xanadu, and then you know. So it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. Artists beginning with the letter X. You'd think there'd be more of them. They would stand out a lot more, wouldn't they?
So, Matt, people profiteering from someone else's bad luck.
Yes. Before we start, actually, there's actually a rapper called Exhibit
who
presented "Pimp My Ride." So
okay.
There you go.
He's really impressed with that.
He
one.
is.
Yeah, that's true. Exhibit.
Yeah, "Pimp My Ride."
Pimp My Ride. Yeah. Did he ever have a hit?
He had lots of big. Yeah, he's a very, very, very successful rapper. Yeah.
Oh, hang on a minute. We've got the expansions. Thank you to your producer who's working for my show. We've got the expansions. We've got Exhibit. See, it's down there. Well done. XTM an X Factor finalist.
Express 2 with David Byrne.
Yeah,
S Express.
that's an S, isn't it? I might take it. You're right. I might take it.
Well, you've got enough X Factor finalists to last a month. So
Yeah,
that'll be
that's
fine
true.
then.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well done. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes, profiteering from bad luck. I do get very irritated when, not that often. I'm fairly chilled normally, but I do get very irritated with companies who profiteer from people's bad luck. For example, you could use my car. I bought a car because some people know I had a bit of an accident on my push bike, and I was had my arm, the arm that wasn't broken, twisted to get a car to get me off the road and out of danger. So we actually went out and bought a lovely little smart car, convertible. Very happy with it. Worked beautifully. I got back home. I went to shut the roof, and there was wasn't actually a loud crack. There was a snapping noise, and two little plastic clips popped off, and couldn't shut the roof anymore. And I'm thinking, and I didn't. I'm not a gorilla when it comes to operating these things. So I rang the people that I bought the car from, and they said, well, it's a Saturday afternoon. It's going to be a bit of a problem us doing anything about it, but bring it down and put it under cover. And I did, so they put it back in their garage, and they were very kind in case it rained, which it didn't. He then said, take it to the garage, the main dealer garage tomorrow, and they can have a look at it, which they kindly did, and put it under cover, because bearing in mind the roof wouldn't shut. And then I said, have a look at it and let me know what's involved. Bearing in mind, the guy that had sold it to me, the company that sold it to me, said, and he'd be a tenner. I reckon that'd be a tenner to fix that. Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not too sure.
All car dealers say that, mate.
Yeah, it's only going to be a tenner. So, anyway, during this time, I then had to attend, for a change, hospital, and I was having a few checks, and I actually happened to be having a ECG. So I was having these little sticky things put on my chest and body and everything, and my phone rang, and I saw it was the main dealer. I'm thinking, I must speak to them, and I said to the nurse, do you mind if I take this? And she said yes. So I answered the phone, and then they told me, oh, really bad news, I'm afraid it's going to cost £1,760 to replace your roof. And I said, but it's only two little clips. And they said, it doesn't matter, we don't have a kit to fix it, we have to do the whole roof.
Did they suck through their teeth at that point?
No. And I said,
the doctor's reaction to the ECG, actually.
And I said, I'll call you back, and I put the phone down, and I said, right, should we do the ECG? She said, no, I've already done it, and it was fine.
Yeah,
so good. Even with that shock to the system, I was okay. So anyway, I then spoke to the car dealer that sold it to me. He agreed to take the car back and give us a refund. I then went to the main dealer and said, you don't need to make the repair, I'll have the car back. And I was then told it was going to cost me £60 to close the roof. They've closed the roof, but it's £60. However, after I went and had a small discussion with them the next day, that actually didn't happen. But
See,
I was
think this is
kind
interesting.
of frustrated.
If you, and it's the same with any kind of item. If you call someone out, or you take your car or your bike somewhere, and there's a fault with it. They're still the people who do it still have to investigate it. They still have to spend their time, effort to do it.
Yes, but that's their problem. Just as if I quote for work to do as a website, if someone says to me, can you quote me for a new website, I don't then say...
But this is different. This is investigative work, isn't it? And sometimes...
No, but I still have to spend time looking at their site, looking at the competition site. I don't just say, yeah, that's £800. I go away and look into what's involved in the job. I'm spending time. If I turn around and say, thanks, here's your quotation, and here's a bill for £60, they're not going to be very happy.
All right.
So I don't see the difference, to be fair, between some person fiddling around on my roof to tell me, no, I'm sorry.
Terrible. John, what do you think?
Well, yeah, profiteering from people's bad luck. I mean, it's not good, is it? But it's kind of the way of the world, isn't it? All these claims adverts, and everyone gets the PPI phone calls every day virtually. It's just, do we blame America for this litigious society? I don't know. It's just unfortunate. It's the way of the world.
Neil?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, we had some electric Velux roof lights put in now, and your extension. One of them wouldn't work. And to cut long story short, I got onto Velux Technical, and they said, we'll come out free of charge and fix it. But if it's not a fault of the window and it's a fault of your electrician, then we're going to charge you 80, 90 quid or whatever, which I thought was reasonable because they've got to send an engineer out and there's a couple of hours travelling and what have you. Interestingly, he came along and it was totally the fault of my electrician. He hadn't wired it up properly. So I had to pay them the money. But I got into my electrician and he reimbursed me. But, yeah, I think if you've got a problem like that and they're going to spend some time in a business looking at something, they've probably got a right to charge a little bit of money in some circumstances, but not if it's a fault with something. But if you've got something, a product, and you take it back to a different company and say, look, can you investigate this fault? They're spending a bit of time. I can understand where they're coming from, Matt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Neil,
I think it depends on the circumstances, really.
I think in these circumstances that was unnecessary. You know, the point was there was a repair that could have been done.
How about this then? How about
there
this?
was a repair that could have been done.
Let me give this scenario. Speaking as a former service receptionist, so you have someone come in and they've got an intermittent fault with their vehicle. So you take the keys from them. You say, we'll diagnose that for you, sir, and you spend an inordinate amount of time diagnosing what the fault is. You eventually, hang on a second, let me finish. And it's the same kind of thing. You eventually come up and say, right, it's your wassamajig, okay?
Lambda sensor.
Could be. Your wassamajig, we'll call it for argument's sake. and it's going to cost you £200 to get put right. And you say, actually, no, I'm going to take it now to the cheap bloke round the corner. Now I know what the problem is.
Sunglasses Ron.
Now I know what the problem is. I'm going to get it done cheap around the corner.
No, but this is different.
No, it's not.
No, it is.
No, it's not.
This is different because that is diagnosis of a intermittent fault. I've had that done myself, and I've rung up and spoken to mechanics and I said, I've got this intermittent fault. They said, we can diagnose it for you, but there will be a charge of 35 quid. And I'll go, yeah, here we go. I'm happy with that. So what I'm complaining about here is there was no mention at all of something costing me anything until the job was, after
Did you get your money back from the other people?
I did.
Well, that's all right then.
Well, it's not because. Because this goes. No, but this moves on to my complaint about price comparison sites.
Oh, keep going. You're clearly on a roll.
No,
go on. No, do it now. Go on.
So I had the car insured, and I got the car insurance through a price comparison site. I found my cheapest quote, and was very happy with it. When I had to take the car back and got my refund, I obviously wanted to cancel the insurance. The insurance company said, that's fine, we'll charge you on a pro rata basis, £8 it will cost you. I said, brilliant. They said, unfortunately, we'll have to take a £50 administration charge from you. And I said, well, what's that for? They said, well, it's for administration. I said, but doing what? Well, because they apparently, for each quote that they get through a price comparison site, they have to pay for that. They have to pay the price comparison site. So because of that, I have to pick up the tab. I cancel my insurance. I have to pick up the tab for that fee.
We should be getting paid for this. This is like therapy, isn't it?
It's not on.
It's a grumpy old git.
It's not on. It is not on. That was very irritating. That it was no fault of mine.
No.
That roof broke, not because of my over exuberance.
Do we get the feeling that he's somewhat passionate about this this roof?
And I bet he's like
the moral of the story is, don't buy a convertible. Matt has just relaxed now back into his chair, and just very cathartic that for you, wasn't it?
Just had some Valium.
Yeah, I think he's spent now. Just with you two left now. So Neil, music.
Right, well, I wonder when Matt was having all this trouble with his insurance company, whether he actually had to hang on to a call centre, because we've done call centres a bit to death on this show, where you have to press 1, press 2, and then you get through to a foreign call centre and you can't understand what they're saying. But the thing that really gets me is the music that they choose. Now, I guess call centres started, 1990s, and traditionally it was Vivaldi's Four Seasons was what you normally got, and then one or two other...
Bit of green sleeves.
Yeah, things like that. But and now they seem to get more and more weird, but some of them, it's just so so dull. And you can't. I was holding on to a phone for nearly half an hour the other week, and it was shocking. But then they keep interspersing it with these inane messages. Things like, I've got some written down here. More information is available online at www. and all that. And then, your call is important to us. Our advisor will be with you soon. Well, it can't be that important, otherwise someone would have answered a lot quicker, I would have thought. And then we are experiencing heavy call traffic at the moment. We apologise for keeping you waiting. And then the one I love is, currently you are number 12,951 in the queue. And, you know, it just drives me mad.
I think we ought to get that on the Mark Murphy show, because, you know, we get a lot of calls here every morning.
We could join the queue, and they could tell you what number you are in the queue.
You'll be next up.
But then the quality of the music, now, on Radio Suffolk, you play a nice mix of easy music. Why can't they just do a nice mix of easy music on this call while you're hanging on?
Because it's expensive, I suspect, John.
I was talking to someone about this today, and apparently there's an insurance firm, I won't name, but it gives you a choice, so you can either go for Motown, pop or classical, which I quite like. I think it's like hats off to
All
that.
of it with the gain turned right up, so you have to have it 3
Push
feet
1
up.
if you'd like to be on hold with Motown. Push 2 if you'd like to be on hold with classical.
Well, at least they're trying, I guess. But
I think that's really clever.
I also heard that the HMRC is the most listened to song of 2016, isn't it? Because people were obviously ringing it up a lot and listening to this song. But I think I've got more of a problem with call centres generally, and the music I can just about deal with.
I used to ring a lot of American companies. I used to ring a lot of American companies, and when you were put on hold with them, sometimes you were actually patched into a local radio station, and it was actually quite
that would be nice.
fun to listen to.
Yeah, I'd enjoy it.
For a little while.
Unless you're ranting.
Well, that's true. When I first started my business, I used to have a streaming internet radio station playing on my music on hold. So again, you know, it was just something a bit different.
Suffolk County Council's a bad one. If you phone them and you've got to hold on, it's dull.
We're going to leave it there. I can't believe how relaxed Matt looks now compared to when he first came in. So if your stress levels are high and you'd like to come in one week, we can help you out now. We'll just leave it there, I think, really. Neil, thank you. Matt, thank you. John, thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Good to see you guys for this week.